we're going to talk to, I hope I pronounced this correctly, Syed, divorced, and the ex-wife still believes.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, is this Syed?
Yeah, this is Syed.
Syed.
Yeah, I'm from Austria. Here is midnight, it's 1 o'clock already. So,
thank you for staying up so late.
Thank you very much for accepting my call.
Yeah.
I usually used to watch the Atheist Experience from the YouTube, but tonight I decided to watch it online. Mm-hmm. But after that, I noticed the parenting beyond belief. It was interesting for me, so I started listening, and it actually interested me. So I'm Syed. It's not my full name because I'm an ex-Muslim living right now in Austria. And I separated from my wife because of the same scenario, because I'm atheist and we had different thoughts of life. So, but that was not the main issue that I told her. But anyway, we separated. We have a child. We named him Joseph. So in the English, Joseph. So he is now 2.5 years old, and he is with his mother. But on Saturdays, I usually visit him the whole day. But now he's quite young, 2.5 years, not much worries now, but I have worries about the future, that how should I convey the critical thing to my child, how he should think and how he should live in future, and other issues also, because I'm coming from this very religious family, so from his mother's side, so from my side as well, so and we live in community, so I'm worried that how should I face with challenges in the future. So I need some advices, perhaps.
Yeah. Dale wrote a book called In Faith and in Doubt, and that book talks about supposed mixed marriages where you have one religious parent and one non-religious parent. So I'm going to hand this over to Dale again. Let's see, what do you think, Dale?
Sure. This really is one of the most difficult situations, because you have when you're together, when you're married or in a partnership, there's a certain amount of there's an understanding that you have to come to agreement on a lot of things about the relationship and about raising children and so on. Once you separate, that agreement isn't binding in the same way. You can really go your own way, and you have to figure out what's best for the child. And the hope is that both parents also want what's best for the child. So the two variables are that, the idea that they have that shared value for the child, and then the level of respect that remains between the former partners. If there is a level of respect there, even if there was disagreement that drove the relationship apart, you can build from that to work on what's best for the child. If that level of respect is broken, if it was a messy divorce, if it was a very difficult thing and there's a lot of acrimony, it is much more difficult, and you end up having to, for example, rely on the courts to decide aspects of, there have been some high-profile court cases in the last several years dealing with exactly this, whether the mother in a divorce case can bring the child to church, or, whether the father can get a child baptized, or whatever it is. So can I ask, first of all, would you say that you do still have a respectful relationship with your ex-wife? Do you feel that it's respectful?
Yeah, I can say, but the point here is still that she is not aware of that I'm atheist, rather than I became atheist after my divorce. But of course, I was open-minded, and we have differences in the sense of education. I'm a PhD student, and she is just a high school degree that she had. So difference of the education and other things. But yes, we have respect in that sense. But I am worried that in future that we may come in clashes, that if I interfere, that, for example, in Islamic society, usually the children should be circumcised. So for me, it's full action to be done. So I'm not sure what should I do, because sooner or later he should be circumcised. So I don't know how should I approach it through just because it is unimaginable that if he is not circumcised in the future, because he will not be a good Muslim. So in that sense, so the future clashes will come soon. So it's a kind of now is a kind of. How should I say it? Just the silence before the storm. So I'm worried about the coming future. So right now it's fine. It's respectful. Yeah.
Right. Good. Well, that you can build from there. And the fact is, it doesn't even have to be overtly about religious versus atheist. What you can talk about is questions like, is there a shared value of having your child make certain decisions for himself? And my guess is that you will differ on some of those decisions. But the question of circumcision is actually one that you can have a conversation about. You could offer, for example, you could say, I'm entirely fine to have my child circumcised. How about we wait until he's 18 and then he can make the choice? And the realization that at the age of 18, nobody's going to make the choice, enters into the discussion. That can be the sort of thing that can make someone think about it in a way that they haven't before. So the assumption is often made that the other person will automatically be coming from the perspective of the doctrine of the religion. But if you can just bend it, if you can just give them a perspective that they haven't had before, like that, it can help them to think about it in a new way. So you're not drawing a line in the sand and saying, I absolutely insist on this. You're saying, how about we think about this in a way that can form the basis of a discussion. The general question of the child choosing his own belief system is another one that's likely to be an issue. But you can approach that from that perspective. You can ask your ex-wife if that is something, if finding his own way to God is something that would make for a stronger faith. You can frame it that way. And if you say it in that way, very frequently a religious person will say, yes, that's the best possible path to God. And then you can say, that's what I want. If my child is going to find God, I want it to be a strong faith. I want it to be a self-motivated faith. And you don't have to say, I also want the child to have the option of chucking the whole thing. But if you approach it from their perspective, and then build in these free thought themes, it can be something that can help a person think about it in a way that they frankly haven't done before. So it's a keep the lines of communication open and talk in these general terms before you go straight to the issue. The fact that the child is so young is really good. You have time. You have time to begin having this conversation and to gradually move the ball to the point where you can come to a compromise position. It might not even be your ideal. But if you start having the conversation now and talk about it in those terms, about autonomy, about the strongest possible belief, that's your best way forward, and keeping respectful dialogue open.
Okay, and I had one last question. I'm quite lucky that I live in Austria. Austria being a democratic country, a good environment for my child to grow up. But still, because I only spent 1 day in a week with my child and the other 6 days with the mother. So I wondered that if in future, of course, naturally the children observe the behavior of the parents. So of course, he observes that his mother prays to God and is very religious, going to the mosque and going to religious gatherings. And of course, when he sees me, that of course, when I'm in different situation, I don't behave like his mother. So this discrepancy and not sufficient time I spend with my child. So how should I balance and bring that kind of equal experience for my child to think critically for himself? Okay, saying that, my father behaves differently, my mother differently, but it's still, how should I help him to, how should I to balance my child's behavior and also experience in his life to help him to grow up normally?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead, Dale, if you feel
Take that?
comfortable.
I do. The one day, it sounds on the surface like 1 day and 6 days is an imbalance, and in the case of what you're talking about, it doesn't have to be. What you need to do is allow your child to see a kind, compassionate, intelligent, decent man who also does not believe. I'm a strong advocate of letting your child know very straightforwardly and very normally that you don't believe and that other people do believe and that it's your choice in the end. But then the strongest thing you can do is not arguments. It's not presenting the case against God. It's simply being the kind of person that your son would want to be and allowing that to stand alongside the example that your ex-wife gives. And so your child can say, okay, there are two ways to go. There are probably more ways to go if there are two. And it's not a question of good and bad people. It's a question of people making different choices. That's really the most powerful thing you can do.
Does that answer all of your questions, Syed?
Yes. And you mentioned the name of a book that you advised is good to read, especially for the situation of parenting. So could you name the book again that I can write it down and maybe I can find it?
Go.
In Faith and in Doubt is the name of the book that deals with parents of different perspectives.
In Faith and in Doubt.
Yep.
In Faith and in Doubt, yes.
Okay. I tried to find the book, and I hope that helps. Thank you very much for giving your time.
Thank you so much for calling.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Call back to let us know how things go.
Yeah, good luck.
Okay.